A very warm good afternoon, my dear colleagues. I'd like to welcome you to this very interesting CPE seminar on specifically intellectual property rights. I'm sure all of you will appreciate that intellectual property rights has grown to become a very important line of practice. Gone are the days where you keep a name and you expect it to be accepted everywhere. Now, if you put a name, you have to check twice so that you don't have any legal case coming against you, including your CA firm name also. So therefore, I think it's a very relevant topic, especially going forward. You are aware that the government of India have launched many very interesting schemes to bring in more corporates into India. So therefore, there are going to be a lot more questions from the IP front that will be asked to every chartered accountant, because we are the more people who do the establishing of the companies. So therefore, it's very important we're updated on the procedures. We did not necessarily take up the work, but at least we should be able to advise the client correctly. And for that, we have an excellent session today. Before I request a very resourceful treasurer, CA Geeta ma'am, to give a special address, we have a video recording which has been recorded by our chairman, as he is not present now. Selva, you can share the video recording now.
Friends, very happy evening to all of you. We welcome you to the penultimate CP meeting, me as chairman of SARC of ICI, on the very important topic on importance of intellectual property rights. We have with us two eminent faculties who is going to lead the discussion on the intellectual property rights, the IPR, CA Pratik Mehta and Srimati Aishwarya Vijay IP is always misunderstood. I remember when a person was continuously imitating a copyrighted material, and when I was questioned what is wrong, he said, I have the copying right. Well, copyright is not the right to copy, and we have seen some bigger lawsuits being filed against each other whenever there have been some violations. I still remember the copyright case between Apple and Samsung, which was for about 120 millions. It was just a small, that tap to zoom and the slide to unclog, the small things which kind of got copied and created a big issue. And when these companies fight against each other, it is not the money, it is beyond money. And at the same time, there have been instances where the IPR is also given free. I remember the 3-point seatbelt system was given free by Volvo to the world actually. So, but whenever there are bigger revenues involved, the companies do not want to give up. And we as practicing chartered accountants should know all those things to guide our client in seeing that his copyrights are protected, and also he do not violate any, because violation also can lead to bigger trouble. And there are certain things which always have a fair use. So we must always know the difference between all these to see that our clients are not put into trouble. And also for us, whenever we are playing an advisory role, we kind of give a proper guidance to the clients as to how to take things. So I wish you all very happy learning. Maybe I will not be able to be there fully because of the traveling which is involved further. I wish you all a very happy learning.
Yeah, thank you very much for the sharing that recording, Selva. Now I request a very dynamic and resourceful treasurer, CA Geeta ma'am, to deliver a special address. Of course, I must also enlighten the members. Ma'am has been a huge pillar of support through the entire year, not only as treasurer, but for all of our programs and leading all the activities. So thank you so much, Geeta ma'am. You're a very busy professional. Still, you've taken time out of your schedule to be here with us. So I request you to please share your special address, ma'am.
Thank you, Abhishek, for your kind words. A happy evening to all the delegates attending this session. It's my immense pleasure to share that SARC has been awarded as the best regional award, and that too our team was successfully completed the tenure at SARC under the able leadership of our dynamic chairman, Dingarjan sir, and our young and energetic secretary, Abhishek Murli. So we are all accredited for convening a successful virtual regional conference and highest number of virtual CPE meets. So this being the last meet during our tenure, I take this opportunity to thank all the members who have contributed either directly or indirectly in making all our programs most successful. Thank you. And when coming to today's topic, in the week of globalization, and it is utmost importance to be ahead in innovations to compete the stiff competition in technology and trade. So India is well recognized for its intellectual skills in various fields like software engineering, missile technology, and moon mission, and such other related areas. However, India lacks in generation of IPR assets in terms of registered patent, industrial design, trademark. So IPR is a focal point in global trade practices and livelihood across the world. These rights boost the innovative environment by giving recognition and economic benefits to the creator and the inventor. So dissemination of IPR knowledge and appropriate implementation is an utmost requirement for any nation. So I'm sure our speakers of today's session, Srimati Aishwarya Raghavan and Sri Pratik Mehta, will elaborate on this area. And with this, I request our secretary to take over the proceedings. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Geeta ma'am. You really set the tone for the meeting. Very lovely special address, as you rightly highlighted all the important issues. I will now have the privilege of introducing the two speakers of the day, Srimati Aishwarya Vijayaraghavan and Sri Pratik Mehta. Being a gentleman, I'd like to start with women first. So I'll introduce both the speakers immediately, one after the other. So I'll first introduce Srimati Aishwarya Vijayaraghavan. She is a registered patent agent in India. And interestingly, she did her BTech in Industrial Biotechnology from Shastra University, followed by Masters in Science in Chemical Engineering from the National University of Singapore. After that, she has done her LLB from the Tamil Nadu Dr. Ambedkar Law University in India and specializes in intellectual property laws, patents, industrial designs, copyright and trademark laws, IP due diligence, technical writing, and education and awareness, like she is doing today. I'd like to welcome you, Aishwarya ma'am. Thank you so much for joining us today. I would next like to introduce Sri G. Pratik Mehta. He's completed his Bachelor of Laws from Bangalore University and Bachelor of Corporate Secretaryship in Chennai. He specializes and has an expertise and track record in trademark law, copyright law, brand management, IP due diligence, IP licensing, portfolio management, and is practicing exclusively in the area of intellectual property law. He is also a professional member of the Bar Council of India and the Madras High Court Advocates Association. So thank you so much, Pratik sir, for taking time out of your busy schedule. We're all looking forward to your very, very enthralling address today, as you're all aware. So our speakers, in fact, just for the benefit of our audience, why the program started a little late is because our speakers had some technical difficulty. They were trying for a better camera angle using a high-tech webcam, but unfortunately there was a lag. So we have shifted to a laptop. So they are trying their best to fit into the same screen. So I request all of you to do bear with that. So thank you so much. Over to the speakers for the day.
Yeah. Thank you, Abhishek, and thank you, Geeta ma'am, for welcoming us. I think this is a very elite forum for us to be speaking on. So we really thank you for the opportunity and also the chairman for giving us this wonderful opportunity.
We'll start with the presentation.
Yeah, we'll just. So are you able to see the screen?
Yes, visible.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So like. We'll get right into the presentation. Importance of intellectual property rights. Like Geeta ma'am told, companies are rapidly advancing in technology, and their technological capabilities have also increased, and the world has become increasingly technology reliant, and physical assets have been replaced by IP assets these days. So company is valued more based on its intellectual property more than its physical property. So this brings us to this presentation, the importance of intellectual property rights. So the agenda for today is, first we will introduce what is intellectual property, what are intellectual property rights, and followed by 1 minute. Followed by the importance of protecting intellectual property and how can chartered accountants and IP lawyers work together? Because a lot of us must be wondering here, as chartered accountants, how is understanding intellectual property going to help me? So we are here to tell you that we have to collaborate with each other. In the current circumstances, we will have to work together to see how we can give value-added services to our clients. So let's get right into it. So what is intellectual property? So as most of us know, intellectual property refers to creations of the mind. So anything that is created by your intellect is an intellectual property. Some examples are inventions, literary and artistic works, logos, brand names, and designs. Designs as in industrial designs. That is, we'll get into each of what these mean at a later stage. So what are intellectual property rights? Intellectual property right is nothing but an exclusive right that is given by a government to the inventor or creator over the use of their invention or creation for a certain period of time. That is, in other words, they are giving exclusivity to an inventor or creator to exploit the product of his intellect for a specific period of time. So there are two categories of intellectual property rights. One is industrial property and the second is copyright and related rights. So an industrial property is nothing but something that can have commercial applicability. For example, inventions, logos, brand names, all these have some industrial applicability. So they are categorized as industrial property. And copyright and related rights. So copyright and related rights are nothing but a product of your creativity. For example, literary work, artistic work, movies, or when you write a book, novels, music, etc. Sorry. So these are the broadly categorized IPR. Okay. So now let's see what are the types of intellectual property rights. So basically, the most important intellectual property right for a company is its patent. That is, a patent is an intellectual property right that is given for the protection of inventive products, processes, and its technology. Sorry, I'll just drink some water and get back. Yes. So patents are basically a protection that is given by the government for an inventor over his inventive products, processes, or his inventive technology. Next is trademarks. Trademarks protect your company's name, your brand name, or the logo of the company. Then comes copyrights. Copyrights protect literary works like novels, artistic works like paintings or sculptures, then dramatic works like, for example, a Broadway production, musical works, cinematograph films, that is the movies that we watch. So that is about copyrights. Next is industrial rights. Industrial rights protect the ornamental appearance of a product or the aesthetics of a product, like how it looks and how it is the visual appeal a product has is protected by industrial designs. Then we have geographical indications. Now, geographical indications are given for goods to indicate that they are from a specific geographical origin. Then comes semiconductor integrated circuits layout design. So all these IC chips that we have in our electronic devices, they are protected under semiconductor integrated circuits layout design. Then we have trade secrets. Trade secrets are nothing but confidential and proprietary information or knowledge that a company possesses, and that is also an intellectual property right that a company has. Okay, so now we'll go into the detailed view of what can be protected how. So like you see on your screen right now, so you have an aero car here that Toyota has filed for a patent for, and then you have the Google Glass. Now both of these are inventions, that is they are something that has not been in the market, that is it is novel and it has some technological advancement, so they can be protected by way of patents. So this is how the idea came to the inventors. So if you see in the previous slide, this is the end product, but this is at the idea stage. So at the idea stage itself, you will have to file for a patent. So you have a broad idea of what your product is going to be, and you know that it is inventive and it has not been in the market so far. So immediately you file for a patent. So you have exclusive right to use that for a period of 20 years. So next comes trademarks. So what is a trademark? Like I already told you, trademark is something like your company name or your trade name or your the logo or anything that is used to recognize your company by. So for example, here Louis Vuitton, you can see the company name Louis Vuitton is also a trademark. That LV logo is also a trademark. So there are other kinds of trademarks like Mickey Mouse, because we have started associating Mickey Mouse with Disney. So Disney uses Mickey Mouse as a trademark because it identifies Disney. So that is also a trademark. Next comes industrial designs. So like I told you, industrial designs will protect the aesthetic features or the ornamental appearance of a product. So what is an ornamental appearance? It might be the shape or the configuration or the pattern or anything that has visual appeal. So if this has industrial applicability and it can be applied on products for mass production, then you can protect that as an industrial design. So example is a scissor. So the specific design of the scissor can be protected under industrial designs. The appearance of your watches. So you find that there are so many different watches models available in the market. So each of them will have something, some visual appeal that is exclusive to that product alone. So that can be protected under industrial designs. Then again, you can see a shoe there. The heel of the shoe has a visual appeal that is unlike that of any other shoe. So this can be protected as an industrial design. Okay, next we come to copyrights. So I think copyrights, most of you would already know because we read a lot about this. And like your chairman said, it is sometimes misunderstood also. Copyright is actually a right that is given only to the creator to exploit or use his creation. And this is for a specific period of time, depending on the work. So it will be, you will have to go, so depending on the work that you create, you will have to be advised by your IP attorney on how many years you have protection for that work. So examples of copyrights are cinematograph films, that is movies. Then you can copyright artistic works like the Mickey Mouse picture that you see here. This can be protected as a copyright. Or the WWF poster, the worldwide fund for World Wildlife Fund, that can also be protected under copyrights. So a novel can be protected under copyrights. So all this will come under the protection that is offered under the copyright law by the Government of India. Next comes geographical indications. So like I already told you, geographical indication will indicate the geographical location or the origin of that particular good. So for example, when you see that painting, that's a Madhubani painting. So you know that it comes from the region of Madhubani here in India. Then Mysore sandalwood oil or the Mysore sandalwood soap, it comes from Mysore. So that is a geographical indication. The Darjeeling tea, the Tirupati laddu, so the Parani Panchamritam, all this indicate the area from which a product is coming. So that will be a geographical indication. Next comes trade secrets. So sometimes you have something proprietary to your company, that is a formula or a practice or a process, a design, or maybe a business method or a compilation of information, that is a database that others might not know. It is proprietary to you and nobody has knowledge of it. So that you can, to take economic advantage over that knowledge over competitors or customers, you can keep it as a secret instead of protecting it under the various IPR that I spoke to you about. We can maybe keep it as a secret. So you have a longer, like until you can protect it as a secret, you have some right over it or exclusivity over it. So examples of trade secrets are the Coca-Cola recipe, Listerine recipe, Twinkies recipe. So this none of us know. And even KFC, its recipe for that, the masala or the spice they use, it is not known outside. So it is something proprietary to them and is maintained as a trade secret. Okay, so when we say when we talk about IPR, now we were talking about patents, designs, copyright, trademarks. So we've discussed the various aspects that can be protected under these various laws. So sometimes what we think, one product can have only one right, but that is not true. A product has a bundle of rights. That is, let's take the example of an iPod. Here, the iPod, the product itself, the idea or the concept can be protected as a patent, while the logo or the brand name iPod, that can be protected as a trademark. The design, the aesthetic appearance or the visual appearance can be protected as a design, and the software that is used for us to use the product, that can be copyrighted. The computer program can be copyrighted. So it is very important for us to understand what IP rights can be protected in one product, so that we get a bundle of rights and we get comprehensive protection of our product. So this is very important for a company to identify and to protect. Okay, so now we come to the main, the primary aspect of this the presentation. So the importance of protecting your IP. So like if we ask one of us here who invented the telephone or who invented the light bulb, everybody would tell that the phone was invented by Alexander Graham Bell and the electric bulb was invented by Thomas Alva Edison. But what if I said that that is not true? See, it actually isn't true. So the telephone was actually invented by a person called Antonio Meucci, and he invented it a year before Graham Bell even thought of the idea. But Graham Bell was the first to file the patent for that idea. So till now, he is recognized as the inventor of the telephone. Similarly, the electric bulb. Thomas Alva Edison was working in the same lab as Joseph Swan. So this Joseph Swan was the one who actually invented the electric bulb. But the idea was stolen by Thomas Alva Edison, and he was the first to file the patent. So immediately once he filed the patent, even though it was contested, till date we remember Thomas Alva Edison as the inventor of the electric bulb and not the actual inventor, who is Joseph Swan. So it is very important for us to protect our IP, because we should get some economic significance from our intellect. So another example, we come to current day examples of the IP that was stolen. Facebook. I think most of us here might have seen the movie Social Networking. So I will just give you a gist of what happened. So the actual inventor of Facebook, we all think, is Mark Zuckerberg, but that's not the right answer. It was actually the basic idea was that of a person called Divya Narendra, who went to two brothers, the Winklevoss brothers, and they were trying to come up with a social networking site for their college, that is Harvard University. And they engaged Mark Zuckerberg to develop the code for them. They had shared proprietary knowledge and confidential information with him without protecting their IP by way of a patent. So immediately Mark Zuckerberg used those proprietary knowledge and code to develop the code by himself and came out with the product, the Facebook. So here they did not move for a patent in the beginning itself. So they had to, the idea was basically stolen from them and it was monetized by somebody else. Although they had an out of court settlement later and they got their due, they had to go through an entire litigation process to actually gain value out of their idea. Another example of IP being stolen is iPad. The actual inventor of iPad is not Steve Jobs. The idea is that of a person called Roger Fidler. So Fidler had this idea of reading newspaper on a touchable tablet. So both Apple's office and his office were in the same building. So they had common clients. So clients used to travel from this office to the next office. So when they shared their ideas with their clients, it was automatically, the idea traveled to Apple company and the idea was immediately implemented and the product was out in the market. So again, he could have monetized his idea, but he did not file for a patent and he revealed his idea before itself. So that got stolen and it was monetized by somebody else. So now, it's already been discussed, companies are rapidly advancing in technological capability. So IP has become increasingly important than physical properties or physical assets. Now IP has become a company's asset. So it is all the more important for you to legally protect your IP so that you will be able to enforce your right in the court of law, and you can also make economic, you can exploit it economically and make economic gains to yourself with your IP. So to give a gist of why it is important to protect your IP, you can see the slide here. First thing, it gives you the exclusive right to use and exploit your intellect, the product of your intellect. So automatically you get a higher return on investment because you invest certain amount of money in developing your product. So it makes sense that you will have to get back that investment. So if you protect your IP through a patent protection or say a design protection, then or a copyright protection, then you get your exclusive right, a legal right to exclusively use it for a certain period of time. So you get a higher return on investment. Second is you get a stronger market position because you will have exclusivity. You can prevent your competitors from bringing the same product into the market. So you have a competitive edge over them and you have an exclusivity in the market or market dominance. So your market position becomes stronger automatically. So you can also find other ways to monetize your intellectual property. Even if you don't want to use it by yourself, you can license it or you can have a franchise or you can sell the IP to somebody else in the market. So again, you gain money or economic advantage through your IP. Next is to attract investors or acquire funding. Now, a lot of you must be advising startups. So you know how difficult it is for a startup to attract an investor or to acquire funding. So the primary thing that an investor will see is if that person has any competitive advantage. So how does that person get a competitive advantage? By having exclusivity in the market or by being relevant in the market. So IP protection helps you be relevant in the market because you will have that exclusivity. So you can automatically, when you have a patent right or a design right over your product, immediately your investors will be convinced that yes, there is stuff or there is there is a point in me investing because I will get some return on investment with this product or with this company. So it is very important for a company, especially a startup, to start protecting its IP by way of legal protection, by way of, you know, getting a patent right or a design right or a trademark right or a copyright to attract investors and acquire funding. Next is capital assets. See, like I told you, IP has become a capital asset now. So it can be used as a collateral to acquire financing, or it, you know, for you to, if you want a loan or something, you can leverage your IP, use it as an asset, and you can get financing. Next is you get access to new markets, because when you let's say that you know, a company like Apple, he is predominantly based in the US. So if he wants to sell his products in India, then in the new market, he doesn't know how the market is. There's a lot of competition there because he's coming from a different place to India. So if he files for a patent right in India, then he knows that he has exclusivity there. So automatically he gets access to a new market and he can exploit this new market. So an IP protection helps a person to access new markets. The most important point is effective enforcement of your rights. If you have an IP, like for example, let's take the example of Joseph Swan, who has an intellectual property. Basically, the idea of the electric bulb is his intellectual property. But he will not be able to enforce his rights and stop somebody else because he doesn't have a patent for it. While Thomas Alva Edison, who's not the inventor, but who has the patent for it, will be able to enforce his rights. He'll be able to stop another person, go to the court of law, and get damages for someone exploiting his invention. So it is very important for you to protect your IP by way of getting an IPR, so that you will be able to effectively enforce your rights over your invention or your trade name or company logo, or anything that is a product of your intellect. Okay, next, the importance of protecting your IP. It will also increase the marketing value of your company, because people will know that you're technologically savvy, you are relevant in the market. So it increases the way the public see your company itself. So it also gives you a positive image. Next is corporate identity. So when you protect your trademark, or when you have a proper branding strategy, it will build consumer confidence. Like for example, we all see, when there is when we think of buying a bottled water, we think of certain brands like Bisleri or Kinley or Aquafina. This is because they have built consumer confidence to their trademark. So you immediately think of going to them for buying bottled water, because you know that the quality of their product is good. So you have to basically create a corporate identity for yourself. And how can that be done? When you protect your trademark, that is your intellectual property, and you have a proper branding strategy in place. So next, when it comes to patents, when you protect your patents, it will help you in getting market dominance. You can showcase your technological excellence and prowess in that particular industry. Like for example, Nokia was very instrumental in bringing in this revolution in mobile phones industry. That is because they had a lot of patents, they had protected their inventions, and because of that, they kind of had a market dominance that helped in them acquiring they got a positive image that they were technologically excellent in their field. Next, and after Nokia came iPhone. So Apple products are known for their technological excellence because they are instrumental in protecting their inventions by getting patents for themselves. So that helps them in getting a market dominance, and also getting a positive image in the market. Likewise, industrial designs, when you file for an industrial design, it helps in creating a buyer appeal. That is, people go by what has a visual appeal. So when you protect your design and you get exclusivity over it, you make sure that you have that appeal to yourself and nobody else steals or nobody else encashes on that appeal. So I think we have established now that it is very important for us to protect it is very important for a company basically to protect its IP. So like I said, IP has become an asset now. So they can be legally protected and they can be legally enforced in a court of law. So they can be independently identified, they are transferable and they have an economic lifespan. So all this has made it, very important for us to start considering protection of intellectual property rather than protection of any other property that we can think of. So when we've established the importance of an intellectual property, I think since you are all chartered accountants, you will all immediately think about the value of an asset. And so to determine the value of an asset, it is like when it comes to a physical property, it is very easy for you to determine its value. But when it comes to IP, since it is intangible, it is not very easy to assess its value. So what essentially we have to think here is if the IP asset, if it has some, if the owner has some exclusive right over it, that is, if he has a legal protection to exclude competitors from using it. So that will be the primary aspect for us to find out if the IP has any value. The IP asset can be valuable to the company. So for the IP asset to have a quantifiable value, it should generate a measurable amount of economic benefits to its owner or the user, and it should also enhance the value of other assets with which it is associated. So for this, it is very important that you get a legal protection. That is, you will have to file for your intellectual property right in the concerned office. Like if it's a patent, then you have to file it at the patent office. If it's a trademark, at the trademark registry, and so on and so forth. So the value of an IP asset. So once we talk about it, it is very important for us to arrive at a value. That is to determine what an IP is worth. So here we have to think about collaboration between chartered accountants and IP lawyers, because as an IP lawyer, we will be able to advise the client on how to protect their IP, on helping them to seek the right kind of protection, but we will not be able to value the intellectual property. So that's where chartered accountants come in. So first way where we can collaborate with each other is an IP valuation. The second is, again, like I told you, this IP asset, it has to generate a measurable amount of economic benefits to its owner and user. So to determine this, we will have to carry out something called an IP audit. So IP audit is another area where chartered accountants and IP lawyers can come together. So whenever a person reads the word audit, immediately a chartered accountant comes to their mind. But IP audit is something technical that has to be done by an IP attorney or an IP lawyer, which the public might not understand. So when they approach you, this is an area where we can work together to be able to deliver or to be able to protect the client's interest appropriately. So let's see more on how we can work together in IP valuation. So when does IP valuation come into play? So when a company has to secure financing, or it wants to attract investors or acquire funding, it wants to license its IP, or when it wants to establish a franchising opportunity, then in the case of IP suits, that is an infringement suit in the court of law, you want to claim damages. In all these scenarios, we will have to value the IP. So for that, there are certain things that we can do that we can advise on, but the valuation itself can be done only by a chartered accountant. So this is an area where we can work together. Next comes IP audit. So when do we have to do an IP audit? So we do an IP audit to ascertain the IP portfolio of a company, to identify unused or underutilized IP assets. That is when we will be able to know how an IP asset will be able to generate a measurable amount of economic benefit to its owner or to the inventor. Then to identify threats such as IP infringement. That is, we have to know if your product is infringing on somebody else's IP, then in that case they will institute a suit against you, and you will have to pay damages to them. That will become very expensive for the company. Or if your product which you have exclusivity over is being infringed by some other person like a competitor, then we'll have to identify that threat. We will be able to stop him and we'll be able to claim damages from him, so we can get the economic benefit out of our IP. Then also to devise an effective IP strategy and to improve IP management. So these are the reasons why an IP audit has to be performed. So like I told you before, there are some certain, certain roles that an IP attorney or a lawyer can do, and a certain role that chartered accountants can do. So I think this is a very good area, or these two areas are very good areas for us to collaborate with each other, because like Geeta ma'am already told you, or like the chairman already told you, IP has become increasingly important in today's world. So when it comes to financial queries or financial advising, they come to a chartered accountant. But a chartered accountant might not know as much about IP as an IP lawyer or an IP attorney will be able to advise. So it is important for us to work together to be able to help our clients and protect their interests. So with this, we come to a conclusion. So if you have any queries, I mean, the floor is open for questions now. I think it is better for us to have an interactive session rather than, going on and on about just IP. So we are open to questions now.
Sure. 1 minute, I'll just check the questions if there's any question popped up as of now. One minute, I just shared the screen from my end, and there are only one question as of now, and we request the audience to post any queries as any. 1 minute, I'll just take a presenter rights one. Is my screen visible now? Are you able to see my Excel sheet?
Yeah, I'm able to see it.
Yeah, that is.
Can you please share the procedure to apply trademark and copyright procedure? How much time and cost does it take? Okay, so the procedure. So for this is a very it's a very long. I think we should have had a presentation on this alone if we take this topic. So basically, I will just try to give a gist of what happens. So for a trademark, what happens is first we apply for a trademark at the trademark registry. So before that, we will have to conduct something called trademark search, because like I told you, a trademark is something that will identify your company exclusively and will distinguish it from other companies. So the main criteria for seeking a trademark registration is that your trademark should be unique and it should not be similar to anything that is already existing. So for that, we will have to conduct a trademark search. So we will have to see if there are any existing trademarks that are similar to our trademark or not. And then accordingly, we have to adopt a new or unique trademark. So once we conduct that search and we determine that yes, it is unique and it can distinguish my products from my competitors' products, then we will have to prepare an application for seeking registration of that trademark, file it at the trademark registry. So once the trademark is filed at the trademark registry, we will have certain documents. That is, we'll have to say whether the trademark is already being used or it is proposed to be used. So if it is already being used, then we will have to give certain supporting documents to show or to prove that we have been using it for that period of time. Then once we file the application and the relevant documents along with it, it will be examined by the trademark registry. So after examination, it will give us an examination report on whether it satisfies all the criteria to be registered as a trademark. So we will have to respond to that examination report and file our response in respect of it. Once we have filed it, if the registrar is satisfied with our response, then he will publish it in the trademarks journal. And if he is not satisfied, then he will call us for a hearing. So during the hearing, we will give our stance as to why it can be registered as a trademark. So once he is satisfied, it will be published in the trademarks journal. So once it is published in the trademarks journal, it is open to opposition by third parties for a period of 4 months. So if somebody else thinks that no, your trademark is very similar to theirs, and because of this there might be confusion in the market, people might think that products sold under this trademark is coming from me actually, then that person will file for an opposition of that trademark. So this, if he files for an opposition, again that is a huge process. So once he files for an opposition, we will have to file a counter to that, saying, supporting our stance as to why there might not be confusion, why our mark is unique when compared to his mark. And then after that, we'll have to submit certain evidences. He will submit his evidences and we will submit our evidences. There will be a hearing at the registry and then accordingly it will be decided. So if there is no opposition, then at the end of 4 months, automatically it will proceed to registration. So once it is registered, we will get a registration certificate to that effect. So this is about trademark process. And for copyright, again, we will have to first determine what exactly we are copywriting. So for example, if it is an artistic work, we will have to check if that artistic work is also capable of being registered as a trademark. So if it is capable of being registered as a trademark, then we have to get a no objection certificate from the trademark registry. And then we will have to file for a copyright application. If it is something else like a software code that you want to protect, then we do not need any no objection certificate. We can directly go to the copyright board seeking for a copyright registration. So for that also we have certain documents that are required. So for example, you will have to prove that you are the creator or the inventor. So sometimes you might not, for your company, you might have engaged an external agency to develop a code for you, a software for you. So in that case, you will have to get a no objection certificate from that person who has developed the code for you. There should be an agreement which gives the rights to the copyright owner, that is the person who has asked for that for developing code. Then that will have to be filed along with the copyright application. So again, once you file the copyright application with all the documents, it will be examined by the copyright board, and then there will be an examination report that will be issued, for which we will have to submit our reply, and then it will proceed for grant. So this is the gist of the procedure for applying for a trademark and copyright. Now, how much time it takes, that is something that is dependent on on whether there is an opposition or not. I think Pratik will be the best to advise on that. How much time? The first question: how much time it will take for a trademark?
See, currently it takes about 8 to 10 months for a trademark to get registered if there is no opposition or anything. If there's an opposition which is filed, it generally takes about 5 to 6 years for the opposition procedure to get completed. How much does it cost? It again depends from firm to firm. The government fees is fixed, but the rates, professional fee differs from a firm to firm. Individuals charge less, some firms charges more. So it depends to
It
whom
also
you.
depends on the quality of their work. So the professional fees depends on the quality of work. Okay, so if the first question is adequately answered and you don't have any other queries on that, then we can move on to the second question. Okay. There are several businesses running using some unregistered logo. What are the consequences to them if found infringed?
See, what happens if someone has been using a logo for a long time, but they've not registered, and somebody else started using it and they file a case against us. So what happens here? We have to prove from when we have been using. If we are the prior user, we get a better right. When we go to the court, we win the case. But if we have not registered and we have also subsequently started using, then we have a bad case here. And then, the court might ask us to stop using it.
So it is always better for you to register your trademark or logo. It might be your trade name or your company name or a logo or a brand name. It is better to get it registered and then use it. I mean, file for registration and then start using it, rather than not registering it and just using it without registration. Because tomorrow, like he said, if somebody comes after you and you are not the prior user, you are not able to support your stance, then you will be forced to abandon that mark, and then and you might have to pay some damages also to the other person because they will win the case. So it is always better to register your trademark.
So,
Okay. So
third
the third
question.
Could you please tell me the jurisdictive area of IP? For example, if one of my company in India has patent from Indian government, then how will I fight with outside India? Okay, so all IP rights are territorial in nature. So you will have to, if it's a patent, you will have to go file for a patent in all the countries of interest. You know which countries are of interest to you and where you will be doing your business or where you have a good market. So you will have to go file for your intellectual property right in that particular area. Like for example, like I told you that example of Apple or Facebook, right? So Apple, if they come and they should have an independent registration in India for their patent for them to have exclusive right in India. So if an Indian company has a patent in India, then automatically claiming priority of that, it can apply for a patent in other countries also. So when you have a patent in, for example, US, then with that patent right, you can file a suit in US if a person is infringing on your IP right there. So if that question is adequately answered, we can move to the next question. How chartered accountants can conduct IT audit, because lack of IT knowledge as it demands skill and specialized knowledge. Okay, so this is not IT audit. It is not intellectual, it is not information technology audit, but it is IP audit, intellectual property audit. So like I told you before, these are areas where chartered accountants and IP attorneys can collaborate with each other. Because like you said, that it demands specialized knowledge and skill, so which an IP attorney will be able to bring to the table. So but when they read the word audit, immediately they come to a chartered accountant. So a chartered accountant may not have the wherewithal to actually conduct the IP audit. So it is an area where we can work together as IP attorneys and chartered accountants and serve our clients together.
So those are the questions as of now, ma'am, and many have asked for the recordings and the PPT that you have done, and recordings will be shared with all the participants so they can go through it again, and if there is any query, they can post the queries to your mail IDs as you have shared the same in the PPT also, right? Ma'am, Geeta, over to you for the thanks. So in the meanwhile, we have a question: how can we get the recording? The recordings will be posted under SARC website under past programs category, and also on the YouTube platform of SARC. They can see the recordings in mostly by 1 or 2 days, and the same will be made to the all registered participants.
No, ma'am, you're not audible still.
In the meanwhile, we'll just wait to say any query. There is a query. It says how to see already registered TM. Does it mean? I'm not sure about. Sir, anything about that? Sir, am I audible to you?
Yeah,
Yes.
you're audible, but we're not able to see the question like you.
No, I didn't flash my screen. The question just says this: how to see already registered TM. Just that.
We have this IP India website, and there we can do a trademark search and find out if a mark is already registered or not. And it depends again in which particular mark, in which particular class is it registered, because there are totally about 45 classes, in which 1 to 34 is divided into products and 35 to 45 is in respect of services. So if you know, I mean, if you were able to tell us what, and you can actually do a search at the NICE classification and find out what product or what service fall under which class, and then you'll be able to do a search in the IP India website.
Ma'am, can you hear us? Hello. Ma'am, are we audible to you? Okay. If that is the case, there is one thing. Another question popped up in the meanwhile. Let us connect. Can you suggest any resources to learn about the registration process of IPR? The same person who asked the how to see already registered TM, Mr. Karthik. I'm just reading the question since it's getting pop. I didn't compile it and flashing it on screen.
Okay. Can you repeat the question? How can you
Can
learn?
you suggest any resources to learn about registration process of IPR?
You can find it in the website of the
IP
IP India itself.
The procedure is there.
1 minute, and then I'll just flash it on. So as of now, my screen should be visible. The last one: how to value the IP.
If it is
If
new
it is new
invention and know the market condition. So actually, for valuing an IP, there are a lot of parameters. Like for example, first basic thing is whether, like, let us take an invention itself here. Has the invention been patented? First, we should know. So if there is no patent, then if there is no exclusive right to use it, then there is no value for that. Anybody can copy. You cannot, monetize on that invention. So first thing is you will have to check if there is a patent that has been filed or not. Second thing, we have to know if the patent, even if it is filed, will it be granted? Has it been granted? If it is not granted yet, will it be granted? Even if it is granted, is it valid enough that, if somebody files a revocation or files an opposition, if that will still be valid or not? So there are certain criteria that we will have to determine before we do the valuation. So about the market condition, we can predict to an extent. Like for example, when smartphones came into the market, it was something very new. Nobody knew about the smartphone market until then. So that is the thing about patents. You will be a first mover in the market. So you will have to see whether there is a demand, or whether there is, a technical problem, whether this product is giving a technical solution to that problem, and whether there will be a demand for that product in the market. Is there any technological advancement? So because of that product, and will people, go for that technological advancement or want that technological advancement? That is something that we will have to determine while valuing the IP. Please give us the best.
The last one. just came up.
Okay, so the question is, please give us the best example of patent owners and validity of a patent right. So the validity of a patent right is for 20 years from the date of filing your patent application. And best example of patent owners, the iPhone, Apple products, iPhone or iPod or iPad, all these have been patent protected. And what the touch on your phone, right? Like when you get an Apple, when you get an iPhone, when you get a phone on that, or phone call on that, you swipe right or you swipe left. So that feature was patented by Apple. So when Samsung infringed that initially, when they brought in their smartphones and they also used this function, Apple immediately filed a suit against Samsung in the court of law and was able to not only stop Samsung from further using it, but also after that only you got, like Samsung phones, you have to either click on the red color or the green color button. So you couldn't swipe right or left anymore. So it could stop them, and it also got damages, that is money for the amount of time that Samsung exploited this invention for. So this is the best example of owning a patent. Next is, if the patent rights owner dies after obtaining license, can the rights be transferred to legal heirs? See, license is a wrong word to use there, because if you are the owner, you have the right already to use it. License is when you are not the owner, but you are seeking a license from the owner to use his patent. For example, here, Samsung can ask for a license by giving some royalty to Apple to use that invention in its phone. So that is a license. So if the patent rights owner dies, then yes, it can be transferred to his legal heirs. It is like any other property, but again, the legal heir will have the right only for that exclusive period, that particular period. Like patent means only 20 years from the date of application.
So those were the questions as of now, ma'am. In the meanwhile, let me just check, is there any that is popping up? If not, so Geeta ma'am, are we audible to you? To Srimati Aishwarya Vijayaraghavan and Sri Pratik Mehta sir for your valuable insights on this importance of intellectual property rights. And we thank you on behalf of our chairman and our secretary Abhishek Murali sir and our treasurer CA Geeta ma'am. Thanks very much, sir.
Thank you for this opportunity. It was